Friends, today we're going to embark on a full-fledged time journey. When you think of UFOs, you probably picture the 1947 Roswell incident. Mysterious triangular-shaped objects soaring in the sky. And aliens in silver swimsuits, right? But what if I told you about observations from 800 years ago? Just as famous as those UFO videos you scrolled through on Instagram last night while eating your pizza. You might say, what are you talking about? People fought with swords in the Middle Ages. What do UFOs have to do with anything? But what I'm about to tell you is so powerful that even the most skeptical will say, okay, something's strange here. Now close your eyes. No, really don't close them, because you won't be able to read the text. But imagine, in 1211, you're in a monastery in Gravesend, England, and you're performing evening prayers, tired from the day's work. Hands clasped, heads bowed, silence. Then suddenly, a noise comes from the sky, like a giant metal bell falling to the ground. Like your neighbors slamming their doors at 3 a.m., but 1,000 times louder. You look up, and what can you see? A huge silver disc-shaped object stretching across the sky, flames erupting from it, passing so low that it almost hit the monastery bell tower. A monk named Gervase of Canterbury, who was something of a journalist of the time, recording everything, describes the event in his own handwriting. After midnight, when the moon was full, a great fireball was seen descending from the sky. It traveled a long distance and landed. Our current way of thinking, and our habit of thinking, people of old were ignorant, they thought everything flew, is shattered. These men, these monks, were not ordinary peasants. They were educated people, fluent in Latin, who had studied astronomy and mathematics. They knew the sky far better than we do in our modern age, because their evening entertainment wasn't scrolling through Tic Tacs, but stargazing and scheduling their observation times. So these people knew the difference between a meteor and a bird perfectly well. If they saw a meteor, they would write, "We saw a meteor." But no, this was different. This was moving in a controlled manner. This was slowing down, speeding up, changing direction. And most importantly, wait, picture this in your mind. This thing was making a sound. Meteors enter the atmosphere, right? Sometimes they explode, but this was something else. So why is this so important? Because this wasn't the only case. In 1290, a monk named Willimus, living in Yorkshire, wrote in the sky about a large silver plate, flat and round. The man's description is exactly like modern UFO descriptions. And here's a crucial detail. At that time, the English language didn't even have the term flying saucer or UFO, because the term only emerged after Kenneth Arnold's observation in 1947. So these people couldn't have cheated, because they didn't have time machines to read each other's writings, nor did they have access to modern libraries. Now let me give you a little history lesson, because we're going to debunk two huge myths here. First, medieval people thought the world was flat. Wrong. This is entirely a myth stemming from a fictional novel about Christopher Columbus, written by a 19th century author named Washington Irving. In reality, Greek philosophers knew the world was round since the 6th century BC, and this knowledge never disappeared throughout the Middle Ages. Astronomy books taught in universities and monasteries stated that the world was spherical. Even Johannes de Sacrobosco, a Latin writer and scholar who lived in the 1200s, explained the roundness of the world in his book Tractatus de Sphera, Treatise on the Sphere. And this book was used as a textbook in European universities for 300 years. So those monks who saw UFOs in the Middle Ages knew more astronomy than your high school geometry teacher. Second myth: medieval people never bathed. Again, wrong. Archaeological excavations have unearthed baths, soap remnants, and dental cleaning tools from that period. Yes, hygiene deteriorated during the Black Death, but it wasn't a constant problem. In fact, there are documents showing that a middle-class medieval person bathed at least once a week. That's a better level of hygiene than some modern universities. Sorry I had to say that. Anyway, let's get back to the topic. In 893, an incredible event happened to the people living in Cloera, Ireland. People are inside the church on Sundays. Imagine, going to church was mandatory back then. Like skipping your company meeting, but the penalty could be as serious as your soul burning in hell. Well, a bit more serious. And right then, a ship descends from the sky. Yes, they used the word ship. And this ship moves so fast, it's completely different from ships sailing on the sea. A priest immediately runs to inform Archbishop Aed Finliath, who immediately writes, "Airships have appeared, with men on board." Now wait a minute. Did he say, "with men on board"? Yes, you heard right. These people claim to have seen not just luminous objects, but creators or humanoid figures inside them. And no, these aren't villagers saying this. They're church officials, the most educated people in the community. Think of it like a complete hair salon accident. You go to the hairdresser, say, "Just trim the ends." And then when you leave, you see yourself in the mirror and think, "Is that me?" So those Irish people looked up at the sky and said, "What is this?" But the difference is, a hairdresser's accident takes 2 weeks to heal. But this UFO sighting has been on record for 1,130 years. And are these things only happening in Europe? Of course not. In 1235 in Japan, those at the headquarters of Shogun Kujo Yoritsune saw mysterious lights in the night sky. The lights danced, drawing patterns, then separated. The shogun was so alarmed that he asked his advisors, "What is this?" His advisors, who were scientists of the time, conducted an investigation and wrote in their periodicals, "It could be the wind shaking the stars," but then they added, "However, this explanation is insufficient because the lights move independently of the wind." Do you realize these people used scientific methods? They put forward a hypothesis, conducted tests, and said, "No, this doesn't fit." It's like when your professor says to you during your project presentation, "This graph is very nice, but it's continued." Bitter, but honest. Now I'm going to tell you the craziest story. Are you ready? On the morning of April 4th, 1561, people living in Nuremberg, Germany, saw a literal battle in the sky as the sun rose. And I'm not making this up. The event was published in the local newspaper Gazette at the time, and even depicted with a drawing. Do you know what the article said? Hundreds of spheres, cylinders, cross shapes. all visualized as fighting, blue, black, red colors, hitting each other, some falling, some exploding in the air. This event lasted for 4 hours, from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. Look at the thoughts of the newspaper reporter Hans Glaser. It was a very terrifying sight. Many men and women saw it. At first, what was observed was 2 blood-red crescent shapes in the middle, one on top, one on the bottom, red. The man continues. With the arrival of this object, the battle began. It lasted about an hour. In the end, they all melted and fell in the sunlight. Finally, finally, a giant, black, spear-shaped object appeared in the sky. All the smaller objects gathered around it and then disappeared. Now consider this event with modern operation. Numerous objects moving in a coordinated manner, varying in strength, controlled maneuvering, gathering in a recorded location, and then disappearing en masse. Doesn't make sense to you, does it? A flock of birds. No, birds don't form spear-shaped objects. A meteor shower. No, meteors don't fight by forming in the sky in 4 hours, and they appear brighter at sunrise. A phenomenon of the country? Maybe. But then why was it only seen in Nuremberg, and no reports came from other cities? And most importantly, what natural phenomenon would you use to justify such regular formations? This is precisely the critical point, because now we're going to move closer to modern times, and an incredible parallel unfolds. In 1952, unidentified objects were detected on radar screens over Washington, D.C. during the night. Air traffic controllers are screaming inside because these objects can suddenly accelerate from 140 kilometers per hour to 11,000 kilometers per hour, and then stop instantly, which is physically impossible because any pilot attempting to stop them would instantly crush them into pulp. That same night, in the same area, multiple pilots visually confirm. I see bright orange lights flying parallel to me. The incident is taken so seriously that Air Force Chief General John Samford holds the longest press conference of the day, 90 minutes. And guess what he says? Atmospheric conditions, temperature inversions, radar illusions. In other words, basically, we know, but we don't want you to panic. Now, do you notice? Both in Nuremberg in 1561 and in Washington in 1952, the initial reaction of the authorities was the same: to calm people, to give a normal explanation, to close off the perspective. It's like when you leave 15 out of 20 questions blank on your final exam and tell the professor, "I've really studied hard, but it was off topic." Nobody believes you, but nobody wants to admit it. So what's the common thread in their distribution? First, these aren't events with only one eyewitness. The Nuremberg trials were wild. The Washington trials were confirmed by radar and pilots. This can't be mass hysteria, because mass hysteria doesn't show up on radar screens. Second, the observers are trained, reliable people: monks, scientists, soldiers, pilots. These aren't conspiracy theories about green men kidnapping me, but the most elite members of society. Third, the descriptions are becoming increasingly distinct: metal, disc/sphere, controlled, bright, fast, controlled movement, noise or deep silence, sudden changes in direction. The same characteristics are repeated from 893 to 1952. Fourth, they can't explain these events with the technologies known at the time. There were no airplanes in 1211, and even balloons hadn't been invented yet. In 1561, fireworks were so primitive you couldn't even put on an hour-long show. Even jet planes weren't properly developed until 1947. Now, after hearing this far, you might say, okay, these are nice, interesting stories. But these are the stories that emerged, maybe exaggerated, maybe misinterpreted. You're right, healthy skepticism is important. But now I'm going to show you modern evidence. In 2004, U.S. Navy pilot commander David Fravor was on a routine training flight off the coast of California when radar operators ordered him to descend and check an object. Fravor descended, and what did he see? A 12-meter-long white object, like a Tic Tac candy. Yes, that's exactly how it was described, with no wings, engines, or exhaust, hovering 15 meters above the water. Fravor attempted to approach, but the object reacted instantly, reaching its intended destination within seconds, arriving 100 kilometers before Fravor. Fravor's F-18 Super Hornet could reach speeds of 1,800 kilometers per hour, making it one of the world's most advanced fighter jets. But this object left it in the dust. And most importantly, this event was recorded by the USS Princeton's advanced radar systems, specifically the FLIR camera. The American government officially released these details in 2020, saying, "The event, these are real, these are the facts." And then again in 2021, the U.S. Director of Intelligence has submitted a report to Congress. 144 UFO incidents between 2004 and 2021 were investigated, and 143 of them remain unexplained. The report states, "This object exhibits advanced technology. It doesn't fit any known existing aircraft." Now, let's put these side by side. 1, 2, 1, 1. Gravesend. A metal disc descending in a controlled manner. 2004. Nimitz. A controlled moving Tic Tac shape. 1, 5, 6, 1. Nuremberg. Numerous objects moving in formations. 1952. Washington. Formations detected by radar. Ireland. 893. Humanoid figures on a ship. And in the modern era, dozens of pilots and astronauts have reported seeing cabin windows or structures. Do you still think all of this could be a coincidence? If we use probability theory to explain why people on different continents, 1,000 years apart, unaware of each other, imagined the same things, the result is very close to zero. Now, here's a very important piece of information. I'm not saying aliens definitely exist and are visiting us, because science doesn't work that way. Science says, we have unexplained observations. We should honestly say, we don't know. But the conclusion? Medieval people were far more knowledgeable, intelligent, and reliable than we are today. They were able to protect themselves. The findings deserve serious attention. Modern military observations, radar data, government reports, they all say There are things in the sky that we can't explain. And perhaps, our so-called modern technology is still very primitive compared to those mysterious objects seen by those medieval monks. Perhaps they are actually expected to be in the future, or from somewhere else. We don't know. But here's the thing. Humanity has looked at the sky throughout history, and this is perhaps the oldest, most persistent sign that we are not alone in the universe. One more thing. The next time you look at the night sky, perhaps the star reaching out to you from that sky is actually just a star. But perhaps, like that monk in 1211, like those Nurembergers in 1561, like David Fravor in 2004, you too could be a witness to history. And who knows, maybe 800 years from now, a YouTuber, or whatever the equivalent of his time was, will say, "In 2026, someone will be making videos of UFOs. He told me." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to write in the comments what you think happened. Have you ever seen anything like this? But please don't start with, "Hey man, we saw something while we were drunk one night," because this is an informative piece, not bird stories. Keep looking at the sky, but don't forget to keep your eyes wide open like medieval monks, because who knows, maybe you'll be the next witness.